All right, we're going to look at types of punishment. So we talked about the legal system, we've talked about criminal law. So now we're going to look at potential punishments for criminals, convicted criminals, and we're going to look at like our goals of our criminal justice system. The first goal is retribution or punishment. The purpose of this is to get vengeance for society. So there is actually vengeance in our justice system. When people have committed a crime and they've been convicted, they've been given a trial, society needs to get paid back, and the payback is vengeance. One of those ways is imprisonment, so incarceration. Jail is going to be less than a year, and that will be ran by your county, so it's run by your sheriff's department. And remember, sheriff's departments run your county courthouse, so they run the county lockup, the jail. Prisons are going to be run by your state, so your state Department of Corrections is going to run our prison system, and that is for people who are serving more than a year. So this would be for serious felonies. When people go to the prison system, remember they're not allowed to treat people horribly. It's not supposed to be cruel or unusual punishment because of that 8th Amendment. One of the things to ensure that is that states are routinely checking their prisons, but if states, because of issues going on in a state, like with the economy, when states are having to make budget cuts, they will make budget cuts when it comes to prisons because the prisons are paid for by the state. They're paid for through your taxes. So a lot of times states will make cutbacks on their budget when it comes to prisons. After many years of doing that, prisons will get run down very quickly. You have to look at the amount of people going in and out of prison. You've got to look at how they have to have clean water, good food. They have to have access to exercise, things like that. So, in order to ensure that states are running their prison systems correctly, the Department of Justice does investigate prisons. So, if they feel like there's too many deaths at this prison, the prisoners are not having access to health care, things like that, the Department of Justice does investigate, and they do fine states, and sometimes the Department of Justice, they have the ability to take over a state prison system if need be. Another punishment that our society gives out is capital punishment, or the death penalty. The death penalty, ruled by our Supreme Court of the United States, is really only going to be for first-degree murder and treason. So if somebody tries to overthrow the government, they lead a act against the government that is purposely trying to destroy it, that's treason, and they can actually get the death penalty for that. Same thing for first-degree murder cases. But it is not something that every state uses. Capital punishment is per states. Some states don't use it very much. Some states use it more than others. It just depends on the state. But when someone has received the capital punishment, they've received death penalty, they have a while before that is going to actually be done. It's not like you get the death penalty while you're in court and then the next day you actually have it done. They have a series of appeals that they can go through. You want to make certain that when you've had the trial that everything went fine with the trial. And that is why they have the right to appeal. Because remember, the purpose of a trial is to prove that this person is guilty beyond reasonable doubt. And so if the jurors came back with a guilty verdict, then in their opinion, that was the case. But that's why the appeal process is there, is to go ahead and go back and to ensure that everything went fine. So if the person did want to appeal the decision, they have the right to do that. House arrest is another one of our forms of punishment. House arrest sets very, very clear guidelines and rules. And people who are under house arrest, they do have the ankle bracelets that have a GPS that is going to be monitored. So people who are under house arrest are normally not violent. They're normally someone who might be more of a self-harm person. Could just be that they might be young, they might not be a big threat to society. There's reasons why they would give house arrest. And I know some people think, oh, house arrest is so much fun because all you get to do is sit at your television and watch stuff, but it kind of becomes like more of a psychological kind of prison because you can't really go anywhere. Now, some people on house arrest, they'd be able to like go to their mailbox. Some people could go to work. It just depends on the conditions of the house arrest. Monetary compensation is like a fine for committing a criminal act. Things like this would be speeding tickets, parking tickets. These are ways to go ahead. Yes, you do raise revenue for your city or for your town, but it's also a way to make people rethink before they do it again. So if it's a $500 fine for parking in a handicap spot, you're not likely to do it again because how many people have $500 to throw away like that? I mean, I don't. Probation is when someone has been convicted of a crime and they're going to serve their time in the community versus going to jail or prison. So, again, this is probably someone who's not violent. It might be somebody who's young. It might be a first time offender. But what's going to end up happening is they're going to have a probation officer. There's very clear guidelines and rules. Yes, they will have a monitor, ankle monitor on them. They're going to make certain that they understand that here are the rules. You have to be home by this time. You're not allowed to be around any convicted felons. There's a lot of rules when it comes to probation because they're trying to correct the behavior. They're trying to prevent them from having another criminal action while they're out. Any mess up, the judges are very clear with people who are getting probation. Any mess up will result in the person going to jail or prison to serve the remainder of their time. A lot of times when people are on probation, they have to go to school. So sometimes this is for teenagers who have committed a crime and they have been charged as an adult. So they'll go to a probation like officer, but they have to go to school. It's not odd for grades to be in there as a requirement or attendance in school. The next kind of retribution is parole. Parole is when someone has been released early from prison or jail. It could be that the person has been a perfect model prisoner. They have done everything right. The guards and everyone would give them great reviews. It could be that the prison system is overcrowded, and sometimes they will do this. Could be the health of a person as well, that the health of this person is really bad, and it would be better if they went ahead and released them. When someone goes on parole, the parole board meets and they review the person's case and they determine whether the person is eligible for parole, whether they're going to actually let them have it. When they let someone have parole, they're going to serve the remainder of that sentence in their community with very clear guidelines. They're going to have a parole officer, just like someone who's on probation or house arrest would have. There's a lot of rules. You can only be here at these times. You can't be out of your house at certain points of the day. A lot of rules. But again, the objective is to steer them away from any criminal activity. The thing with parole and probation and house arrest is you know what the rules are. You know what the punishment's going to be if you violate it. So they're trying to coerce you. They're trying to get you to act accordingly. A lot of times under those things, people have to do drug tests as well. So they can be required to do drug testing. They tell you you got like an hour to get to the place. It's on you. If you miss it, you're going to go in trouble and you could go to prison or jail because you did not do one of the conditions of your sentence. Goal 2 is rehabilitation. This is trying to change someone's behavior so that they become law-abiding citizens. You know, most people really are law-abiding citizens. Most people follow the law. Sometimes people don't. So It doesn't mean that they're horrible people. It means that they messed up. Everybody makes mistakes. Okay. So what you got to do, or what the law is trying to do, is they're trying to change the person's behavior by giving them like teaching programs that will help them. Boot camp. Boot camp is one, and that one is not odd for juvenile offenders to be sent to. So juveniles in the state of North Carolina is 16 under. At 16, you can be charged as an adult. So boot camp is like military. Okay, it's like you're going to a school that is going to make you do a lot of physical activity. It's going to make you do some therapy where, people they're trying to figure out what is the root, what is causing these behavioral issues, but they're trying to fix their behavior. And I know you've probably watched on television these kind of shows where they have children, they have young kids going to these boot camps. They are trying to get the kids to correct their behavior before it becomes a lifelong habit. Community service is another rehabilitation form. This is where the person who has been convicted is going to give back to the community, to the area that they've hurt. And again, there's very clear guidelines. They're telling you how many hours you have to do. They tell you places that you can go. You have to sign in at those places. You have to have paperwork done, and you have to turn that in by a certain point. But community service is a way for the criminal to return to give service to the area. There are some issues with rehabilitation. 3/4 or 75% of criminals, once they've been released, are rearrested within 4 years, and we call this recidivism. Recidivists, or repeat offenders, has led to 3-strike laws in a lot of states. So after 3 serious felony convictions in some of our states, people will from that point on serve a life sentence. Why did these kind of laws happen? Because if you look right here, you're saying 3/4 of people who have been released from prison are getting rearrested. But they also started looking at people that they constantly were bringing in and constantly arresting. And there was, after a certain number, they had determined that this person was always going to be someone that they would bring in. So it seemed like the magic number of 3. After 3 times that they had brought this person in, convicted this person of a felony, this person would, for this point on, live kind of this lifelong criminal experience, this criminal career. So a lot of states started creating these 3-strike laws. It is kind of controversial. There's stuff going on with the 3-strike laws, and police unions have talked about how they would like to maybe get rid of this. Some police unions are still for it, so it's a controversial part. But after 3 felony convictions, they have figured out that this is a person who should not be released back into society. This is a person who they need to keep in the prison system. It's only in some states. It's not in every state. The next thing we're going to look at is goal 3, deterrence. So this is a way to try and prevent future crimes. In theory, the threat of going to jail, prison, and death penalty is supposed to deter or stop people from committing crimes. And like I told you, most Americans are law-abiding citizens. Most Americans really do follow the law. The threat of getting a ticket by parking in a handicapped spot stops most people from doing it. The red light cameras, where it takes a picture of your vehicle, has actually stopped a lot of people from running those red lights in the dangerous intersections. So it does deter crime, but it depends on the person. So this is one of the goals, is to use these punishments to deter a person from committing a crime. So when you're a person and you know the fine is going to be that amount, do you stop, pause, and think, I better not do it? So that's what you look at when you look at deterrence and trying to prevent future crime.